Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. As usual, let us begin our Dharma talk today by reciting the mantra of the universe, Om Nam, 7 times. Action, please. So this is our third and last occasion this spring, and I would like to begin with a classic story. And this story points out something really interesting. What is it that we really have? So, a long time ago in China there was a great sutra master, Doksan, and he was very proud of his knowledge of the Diamond Sutra. And one day, he heard that in the south part of China, there are monks who do not study sutras, not even the Diamond Sutra, or the Avatamsaka Sutra, or anything. They simply sit facing the wall, 10, 12 hours a day, eat very little, sleep very little, and only keep donna. And rumor had it, many of them attained awakening. Doksan couldn't believe that. Moreover, he couldn't approve of that. So he said to himself, I'm going to go to the south, hit those monks, and teach them the Diamond Sutra so that they could attain correct awakening. So the journey at that time was really not so quick. There was no KTX, there was no busok bustle, there was no quick transportation like airplane. So he took the long road on foot. So as he was walking past the countryside, he was near the southern area where he was going to go, and he came upon an inn, a small place which had a restaurant on the ground floor, and on the upper floor they had accommodation. And as usual, old Chinese Buddhist women, they really wanted to treat monks well. And usually these wandering monks, they got their lunch for free if they truly represented the behavior of a correct practitioner. So this old woman saw Doksan, and he said, Sunim, you look like an eminent practitioner, but I have to ask you one question. And if you answer that question correctly, your lunch is of course free. If you do not answer that question, then I cannot give you lunch, even if you pay for it. Doksan was really upset when he heard that. He said, you don't know who I am? I am the Sutra Master of the Diamond Sutra. I have been teaching in the north thousands of people, and now I'm coming to the south to teach these ignorant monks who are just sitting all day. What question can you possibly ask that I would not answer? Well, Sunim, I have really just one simple question. The Diamond Sutra says, past mind cannot get enlightenment. Present mind cannot get enlightenment. Future mind cannot get enlightenment. So please tell me, with what kind of mind will you be eating lunch today? So Doksan heard that and his mind completely froze. He could not answer. He could not do anything. He could not say anything. So his face went completely yellow, and then gray, and then red with anger. Then his whole charade of emotions passed. He got calm, and then he said, "Old woman, is there a Zen monastery nearby?" And the woman said, "Yes, Sunim. The great master Yangshan is within walking distance. And if you like, I can point you the way." So Duksan reached the monastery, and Yangshan Sunim, as usual, received his fellow monk very politely, invited him for tea. And this kind of conversation over tea, you know from your own visits in Korean temples, they can last a very long time. If good karma, good inyan appears between the two people, it can last many hours. So Doksan Sunim reached the temple before nightfall. The tea time lasted almost until midnight. And when time passed and they saw that it's really time to rest, Doksan Sunim said, "Well, it's been a great pleasure to have tea with you, but now I must remain in my quarters from now on and take some rest before tomorrow's practice." So Yangshan gave him a little rice candle. And Doksan took it. He opened the door and he said, "Wow, it's really dark. But with this little candle, I can find my way." That moment, Yangshan blew out the candle. When that happened, Doksan got in light. And next day, he just brought out his big backpack in which he was carrying his own script of the Diamond Sutra and all his commentaries and all his treatises and essays and everything. And he burned them on the temple yard and danced around and cried out in joy, "From now on, I will believe all the teachings of the Zen masters and great monks." And he himself became a great Zen master. And when anybody asked him a question, he didn't answer with words. He just grabbed his stick, boom, hit the questioner. But his hit was not body hit only. Of course, people could feel it on their bodies, but it was a mind hit. And with that kind of mind hit, people attained awakening. That was the job of Doksan's hit. Okay? So what did that hit really do? Of course, you may wait for the stick, but now we only talk about it. Okay? That brought you back to the moment. And this is today's topic. And that's why you heard the story. What is it that we really have? What is it that really matters? One big source of our suffering is that we do not take care of those things or even those people who matter. And because of that, we neglect important things. And sometimes we are very fastidious and precise over completely unimportant things, and we get lost in the details and we lose the moment. And that's why we suffer and make others suffer. So what is it that we really have? This story and many others and stories clearly show that we have nothing but this moment. Of course, we have a notion of the past. And this past results in this present moment with some karma, which you brought here. So this morning you put on your clothes, and tonight you wear it. Okay? Tonight you go home and you have to change this clothing which you are wearing right now. So in our minds, we rightfully have past, present, and future because of our karma, because of our being born into this kind of body as a human being. But please be aware of the fact that unless you are born into this body, unless you are born onto this earth, unless you have the 5 skandhas as we have it right now, we do not have a clear notion of past, present, and future as we believe that it is absolutely existing. One of the biggest teachings is that time and space are relative. You heard 2 lines of teachings coming together, and that's what we talked about it in the first place, in the first occasion, lining up 3 great teachers in the East and 3 great teachers in the West. And what happened, and we talked about it during the second time, that the 20th century brought very interesting merging points between East and West. And what happened is that the reality of the moment and the relativity of time and space, as well as mental phenomena, became evident, clear, and undeniable. Okay? So time and space exist like this because we are in this body and we have this kind of mind. Therefore, we have past, present, and future, good and bad, high and low, life and death, all kinds of things. But if we are born into a different body, or we are not born at all, and we don't have the five skandhas and the six senses, then the whole universe to us appears differently, including time and space. This is something we need to remember all the time when we see the great mysteries of galaxies and the whole cosmos, or we want to look inside and find our true self. Alright? So past, present, and future exist in the way we have it, because we are born like this, okay? And that's why we live in 3 dimensions of space, but only 1 dimension in time. And most of us would believe that it's unfair. You know, in space you can make a U-turn. You do it every day in Seoul, I know, I see it. But you cannot make a U-turn in time. You want to go back to your youth? You cannot. You want to go back to yesterday to fix your mistake? You cannot. You have only this moment. And this moment, interestingly, is the converging point as well as the source point of past, present, and future. That's why it is so important. That's why the Zen teachers, they ask, what do you see right now? What do you hear right now? What do you taste, smell, touch, and think? What are you doing right now? So all these questions, they point you to this moment, which is the only thing we've got. The past is gone, the future hasn't come, and the moment you have an opinion on the present, you lose it. Okay? The moment you create present in your mind, it doesn't exist anymore. It's somewhere else. Okay? In the idea realm, balancing towards the past or verging towards the future. So that's why past, present, and future, they don't exist. And that's why the old teaching says that if you have a mind which is divided into past, present, and future, you cannot wake up. But when you take just one step back and you see where all these 3 come from, then you attain this moment. Then life and death, coming and going, time and space have no hold on your mind. On your body, yes, our bodies come and go. It's born and it dies. But if you attain this moment, then the mind is not attached to the 5 skandhas or the 6 senses, and then this moment is truly yours. That's why we ask the question. That's why we practice with the Huadu. Because if you do that, then the question stops your dualistic thinking and stops your thinking of past, present, and future, which we make. So when we talk about the relativity of time and space, then it's not just a magnificent fact. It's something we can use. It's something we can use to take away our suffering, which we feel and also make others feel. That's why the path to awakening is so important. Many people ask me these days, questions, how can we solve the world's problems? How is that possible? When we seem to have famine, war, natural disasters, climate change, everything. And I have to say that if you want the 10,000 weeds to disappear, you must find the one root where those weeds come from and cut that root. And if you don't find that root, then you just eradicate 1, 2, or 100 nasty weeds, but 1,000 more appears because you haven't found their root. And the root of all these problems is in our ignorance. If we completely take away our ignorance, then all this suffering which comes from dualistic thinking of good and bad, which results in anger and desire, and all these actions that we see in the news, then they are all gone. Because just like time and space do not exist by themselves, our dualistic thinking also does not exist by itself. we make it. And that's why the Buddha, when he started to teach, he really wanted to get to the point very quickly and teach the essence of the Dharma, which is the most important verse in the Avatamsaka Sutra. And if you want to understand all the Buddhas of the past, present and future, then look at this universe as created by mind alone. And now when you hear that, it may sound very profound, but nobody can say that they understood that right away. They understood the words, maybe, but what's the real meaning? And how can we use that in our everyday life? So how does that translate into something practical, into something that we can positively use to help each other? And the Buddha saw that many people just didn't get it. How would they? It's too steep, you know. Imagine the Indian culture of that time. The teachings of the Brahmins and the yogis and the Siddhas, all these folks, it was very far away from this. Okay? So the Buddha said, okay, so let's go back one step. And then the Four Noble Truths, which is largely expounded in the Lotus Sutra, that came. So in the Lotus Sutra you could see as the Four Noble Truths that suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the way to end suffering, as if it just existed in the world. It took about 10-15 years for the Buddha to come to the Prajna Paramita or wisdom scriptures, when through the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the Flower Garland Sutra, if you look at Western translations, he came to the same point which he began with 15-20 years before. Now that required a lot of patience. So he just matured his teaching with the speed of understanding and awakening of his own students. So always one step ahead, so that the students could make that one step. That was the teaching method. His perception was way ahead, lifetimes ahead. But he was teaching in a way that people could comprehend and understand and make the next step in their lives, with their karma, with their homework. Okay? So when he talked about the basic facts of life on this planet, then he really talked about this moment only and how we can use this moment. And the usage of this moment and the truth of the Avatamsaka Sutra, that the whole world as we know it is created by mind alone, that completely overlaps and coincides. Because that creation happens now, right now. So what kind of thinking do you make? What kind of emotions do you make right here, right now? What is it that you maintain and what is it that you take away? So creation, maintenance, and destruction. These three are something that we are profoundly responsible for in our lives, in each other's lives, and on this planet. You know, in Hinduism, they made three gods for this. Brahma was the creator, Vishnu the maintainer, and Shiva the destroyer. Okay? Now this is an important point because this was projected. This was given to people as three principles, and people, you know, they made offerings and sacrifices before these gods. And they had many other gods in the Hindu pantheon. So when the Buddha just turned everything around and says the whole thing is created by mind alone, then the three principles of these deities just went back to you, to all of us, that we are responsible for creation, maintenance, and destruction. Okay, the gods are just reminders as the highest principles that we have, that we unleash or unfold depending on whether it's conscious or just acting out of habits with some serious ignorance or avidya. So what is interesting is that the primary point of our suffering is called not seeing, avidya. And when we see, then we attain the moment and we can use this moment very well. So basically that's the only point I wanted to bring today, because until next spring we do not meet. And next spring in 2011, if we have airplanes to travel with and an atmosphere which is navigable and no volcano ashes going all around, then I hope that we can meet in Korea again. So as the last teaching for this year, it's important to see that we only have this moment. No matter how much we may worry about the future, or we may be sorry or proud of the past, this is the key point. That's what I want to leave you with right now as the introductory, and would like to welcome your questions at this point. So, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Is the mind permanent or impermanent?
Say it again into the microphone.
Is mind impermanent or permanent?
Put your mind here, then I tell you whether it's permanent or impermanent.
You see,
Too fast. First, your mind here.
what
Can
is
you do that?
What is that?
That's my palm. Yeah. I want you to put your mind here, and then I tell you whether it's permanent or impermanent. Can you do that?
How do you know that it's your palm? How can you know
You are
that?
scratching your left foot when the right one itches. Homework. If you ask the right question, it helps you. More questions? Yeah, Vision.
Thank you very much for your wonderful lesson. And I think our five skandhas, the six senses, are determined by our karma. Then there's no spontaneous or no freedom to think about or to realize it, because our thinking, our thought, our imagine, or our perceive, everything is determined by the past karma. In the case, I think there's no freedom or no enlightenment.
You think so?
Everything is controlled by past karma.
You think so?
I don't think so, but I'd like to know logically or in Zen teaching.
Because that's how you began, Vijan. I think that.
Right.
I think, therefore it exists. You don't think, then you start to see things as they are. I give you a very good test. It will always help you, and when you're in doubt, repeat it. Please, touch your ear. Okay, was that determined by your past karma?
I'm not sure.
You can do it again! So, okay, was that also determined by your past karma?
Even this one is determined by.
So if you want to do that right now, you can. You don't want to do that right now, you don't have to. So that's your freedom. But once you have done that, then it's your responsibility what you do with it. Squeeze it more, ow! Or let go, very happy. So the same thing with any kind of karma. If you become attached to it, you suffer. If you let go of it, you can use it. You know? So you say we are determined by our past karma. Yes, if it's so strong and we are so blind together that we are attached to that. You know? Imagine that your car is going to the scrapyard because it's too old, and it goes into this place where there are these big metal cushions, and it becomes this little box, you know, of metal. Of course, everything is taken out. Now, what would happen to you if you were attached so much to the seat of the car that you wouldn't unfasten your seat belt? Can you imagine you go with your car to the scrapyard? That's what happens to most people when they die. So it's not so funny. Okay? You attach the body, you die like that. More questions? Yeah, sure. Mike, Mike,
It's my honor to see you in front of my eyes, not in the internet.
It's wonderful that you came.
And these days I try to concentrate on the present moment right now. So I sometimes do meditation for about 10 minutes or so.
Sometimes.
Wow. And every time I try to do it, millions of thoughts are arising in my mind and in my brain, so that keeps me distracting from concentration. So what would you recommend me to enjoy the present right now?
Welcome, Neo. You are in the real world. Finally, you started to see your thinking. That's the correct beginning. If you told me that you sometimes meditate for 10 minutes and you enjoy unmoving samadhi, an absolutely clear perception of the moment, I wouldn't believe you. Because then you read something and then you're telling me that. But now you told me about your own experience, and that is wonderful. So what happens when you cook mandu and you just take off the lid, all the steam comes out. Under the steam, there's the mandu. And that is delicious. So under this thinking, deep, 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 there is the source of that, okay? Our true substance, and that is delicious. So if you want to enjoy something, cut through that thinking. Attain the source of that. Attain your true self. You can truly enjoy that. We call that Dharma joy. It takes some more practice, maybe 20 minutes. More questions?
Is that what you refer to as empty-mindedness? Is that what you refer to as empty-mindedness?
Copy that. So actually, somebody else referred to it as empty-mindedness. If I used that word, it wasn't really correct. Empty and mind, if you put them together, it's a bad combination. Because most people would fall into emptiness, nothingness, and they would have this kind of negative or zero type thinking. And they believe they have to wipe everything out of their consciousness to reach a kind of superhuman state. Now, I've seen many people who tried it, and either they turned back to some clear and natural practicing, or some of them ended up in mental hospital. You cannot wipe out your thinking. You can go beyond it, but you cannot stop thinking with thinking. Okay? It's like a dog chasing its own tail, trying to bite into it. And when that actually happens, and the dog screams and suffers, and out of anger bites into the tail again, then screams and suffers and bites into the tail again. Okay? That's what it means, trying to empty your mind forcefully with some Buddhist idea, or using the Zen teaching in the wrong way. And we always have to say, when people are really eager to attain empty mind, and they use everything within their power, within their capabilities to attain this empty mind, we say, relax, okay? Relax. Just perceive the sounds. See what's in front of you. Do not want to be such a good Zen student. Do not want to get enlightenment right away. Do not want to be a perfect practitioner and attain this perfect mind which is completely empty, because it's all conceptual, it's all thinking, okay? So we teach them to return to the mind which is before thinking. We say that don't know. This point. And when you really have this sound, this 100% in your mind, then empty and mind all disappear. So if people are attached to these negative concepts of empty, or empty mind, or emptying the mind, they become like these dogs chasing their own tails, and they can cause a lot of suffering to themselves. Because they are chasing an idea, and this idea has no content. Okay? So no matter how much they are chasing it, they will never get it. So emptying the mind, how does that really work? What do you hear now? Konya, talk to me. What do you hear now? I mean, is your ear and your brain so distant so that you hear it already? Why don't you say that?
Don't put me on the spot like this.
You are already there. I'm sorry, darling. So? What do you hear now?
I hear confusion.
That's your thinking. That's not what goes through your ears. You wanted to give me a very good answer and you found confusion, right? But you can hear many things. Even a simple buzz of these neons, you know, that's enough. Or the distant hum of the traffic. And that's why in the old days, Zen masters say, go ask a tree. A tree will teach you. The tree doesn't say empty or full, suffering or enlightenment, confused or clear. It's all human concepts. That's why we bow to Taoism. Because Taoism, as they merged with Buddhism, they made a lot of things very clear. Okay? Very natural. The merge of Taoism and Buddhism, that's Zen. Our Chamson Buddha. Okay? So your ears help you. Your eyes help you. Even your clear thinking helps you if you're not attached to it. Okay? You perceive that. But don't be such a good Buddhist that your Buddhist thinking would become a cloud of ignorance. Because that's what can happen. Okay? That's why, what do you hear now? What do you see now? What are you doing now? Instead of being attached to the senses, all these become your true teachers. Isn't that wonderful? That is truly wonderful. That's how you turn the sensory realm. Our existence as a sentient being, that's how you turn it into a path of awakening. Don't attach to what you hear, just hear it. And perceive what is it that hears it. Don't attach to what you see, just see it. And perceive what it is that sees it. And if you really get to the point, then you ask just a collective one question, what is this? And if you rest in this question, it acts like a magnet. It just retrieves all the small particles of iron, which is all your thoughts, all your making with the mind. Rest with the question. Keep the Hwadu correctly in your Tanjoy, okay? And then all your thinking gets absorbed. And when that happens, confusion disappears. Because you had a bunch of answers, Konya, you just didn't know which one to give. You couldn't decide which one is correct. Which one is something I would accept. Now you have that thinking, you really cannot answer. Okay? More questions?
I will have more questions.
One more.
Buddha taught that all is suffering. Why is suffering?
25%.
We love our family. We love many things like music, and we like money. There are many good things. Why Buddha teach that all is suffering?
You know, we should read this story, Mustard Seed, okay? Because that really, we just talk about family and people we love, and that's wonderful. But even loved ones, they die. You lose them. Isn't that suffering? Okay?
Yeah.
So, family is wonderful, but the suffering is coded in. So we have 4 kinds: birth, old age, sickness, and death. That's the 4 major kinds. Being with those that you don't like, not being with those that you like, getting what you don't want, not getting what you want. The 4 minor kinds of suffering. Look at your life. Look at our lives. Don't we have that? We have it. Of course, it is completely mixed with happiness. But from the same person, one morning you get a good phone call, in the evening you get a bad phone call. What does that really mean? It means that everything is changing and everything is up to coincident conditions. Nothing exists by themselves because they are all interrelated. And that changes sometimes suffering into happiness in a moment, and then happiness into suffering also in a moment. So originally suffering and enlightenment, happiness and sadness, they do not exist. But we make them, we feel them, we give them to other people. Okay? That's why the Buddha had to point that out. And remember, the Four Noble Truths is just the beginning. Many people in the West, they think that's the end, okay? And they say, well, that's really pessimistic. No. We first really have to see things as it is, as this world is. And if we refuse to do that, then we cannot get down to business. You know? In a company where there's liquidity problems, the accountant has to tell the CEO, sir, we have a problem. And then they can start cost cutting, savings, etc., different strategies, more sales, etc. But if there is no notion of suffering, then there is no rescue package. It's the same. So only those people can attain liberation who also attain suffering. You know, I tell you a story about this because this was really just hitting me like a Mack truck when I was a young bhikkhu, okay? And I was in the 90s. So after our great precept ceremony at Tongdosa in 1996, you know, sometime November, there were like 10 of our family who took bhikkhu precepts at that time. It was fantastic. The whole company, all those other really mature, seasoned practitioners, our monk friends, and also our Supi Sasanims, you know, the teachers. It was a fantastic training, you know, 9 days or so. And after that, we returned to Phagesa, to our temple. And our Chinese monk friends who came from Singapore and Taiwan and maybe other places in Southeast Asia, they were waiting for us, and we shared our experience, how they went through their bhikkhu training and how we went through ours. And we explained, and the forms and everything. They were just nodding their heads, etc. So we were in the tea room, and we were talking about this. And one elder bhikkhu from Singapore, who took his precept like 5 or 6 years before ours, he said, he graduated from a sutra, big sutra university in Taiwan. And he said a very interesting event when he was graduating. One of his teachers came up to him and said, look around. How many monks do you see now? He said, well, I can see my whole class, the whole university. I mean, we have like over 200 people here. And his teacher asked him, how many of them will still be there in 10 years? And he said, my monk friend from Singapore said, I don't know. And then his teacher said, only those who suffered. That's all. Remember that. You do not just become a Buddhist because you are interested. It's great to be interested. You read a couple of books, you meet a couple of people, you talk to friends. That's what brings you to the path. But what keeps you on the path is that you attain suffering. That's why it's so important. It doesn't mean you have to torture yourself, okay? That's not the point. It's not real suffering, you make it. But suffering which is right here, right now, you have to attain that. What kind of human beings we are? What kind of world do we create? What kind of laws we live under? If you don't perceive suffering and attain suffering, and you ask these questions, then we must be really blind. But if you attain that suffering, that's like your fuel. It's not, first it seems like a hindrance, but it's not. It's your fuel, it's your motivation. It's your kyongyu or privalyu, okay? In your great vehicle. Okay? So use that. Suffering is actually not bad. If you use it correctly, you become a very mature practitioner. And if you are very perceptive, then it's enough if you see the world suffering, other people suffering, and you are already sensitive enough that you are motivated greatly to attain awakening and help others. If you don't, then you have to suffer yourself. A little bit, we always do. We cannot avoid it. Even the Buddha did, you know. That would not be, you know, necessary, we think. Because he was such a high-class person, even after he was born, all these things happened reportedly. That's not true. It is necessary. It's like an injection. And that produces the immune response from the body. So whether it's a physical shot or a mental, like a hit, that suffering is your primary motivation, is your first shot of fuel, what it means to live and die on this planet. And that's not funny. That's dead serious. So we need a sense of humor to talk about it. Very serious things, either you can laugh at them or you cannot really deal with them. Okay? So that's why when you really want to study the Dharma, you have to take it easy. But you have to be very serious. And you have to point your mind to the right way and to the right direction and not waste your time. Yeah. I think that's enough. Right? More questions? Any kind. Somehow, this part of the room is a little shy. And that part of the room is more brave. Now, we suddenly shift the Earth's polarity, that east is here and west is there. Now, we just change it. This part of the room we can have some questions. Right there. That was very quick.
We don't have to wait for the other sutra. We can just ask the next question, what is this? And I just, when I was a practitioner, I practiced that way for 20 years. I do Kuan Chan, which is focused on my question, what is this? What is all this about? The thing is, the passion is so deep, so fundamental, so it doesn't match to my daily activity, daily practice, daily human relationship. So now I'm studying the dilemma. Why am I trying to do this again and again without any so-called enlightenment or enlightenment experience or something like that? I can do something to like, I don't know, it's like they body, so it sounds physical and real. And even though my consciousness still reaches against that simple way to the white rainbow body person, but the deep question, what am I or what is this, doesn't match to our daily life so much. So I just...
What is this?
It looks like some porcelain.
So how can you say that the question doesn't match everyday reality in life?
Because the koan is not asking what is this object.
So what does the Kongan ask?
There are 84,000 koan, but
Stop. What does this question ask? What is this? Where is it directed?
it should come on my mind, I guess.
We know where it comes from. Where does it go?
I don't know.
Keep that don't know mind. You know why? Because if you don't keep that, you can spend another 20 years practicing and still nothing happens. What happened so far is that you mixed your thinking with this question and you expected that something comes out of it. negative. Nothing will come out of it if you mix it with your thinking, with your feelings, with your expectations. You ask a question about this question. It's like mixing sand with rice. And that's not really uncommon. We always do that. But when you have to eat it, it really doesn't taste good because it scratches under your teeth. So, don't think about the question. Do not ask a question about the question. It's wrong, okay? And if you think that attaining the rainbow body is easier, go for it. Piece of cake. Go for it. First of all, find somebody who attained it and came back. Because you find eminent Zen masters in Korea and outside of this country who really got to the point of this question, what is this? And all their thinking disappeared. That's the point. And they are still here. They are still teaching. Go around, find them, ask for the right instructions, and then the right inyon will appear. If you find that you are really not compatible with somebody, maybe you just don't have the right inyon to study from that person, practice with that person. But if you really spend 20 years doing this, and you still don't see the use, it's like an airplane which never really flew, only taxiing around the runway for 20 years in Incheon, Hong Kong. It doesn't mean that you attain flying. You have to get to the runway, you have to just pull the throttle 100%, and then after a couple of seconds or minutes, depending on what kind of airplane you've got, it takes off. That means you really have to practice hard, 100% without thinking, and then the real meaning of this question, the real function of this question appears. The question doesn't really have a deeper or profound meaning, something you can understand with your thinking, but it has a function, and this function is important. Okay. I'm sorry, we have to kind of look at our network here because I'm running out of electricity. So it looks like that this is not plugged in. I can see it on my battery level. So I need some help so that this thing could be having real electricity. Because this one is not having it. Okay? Please, let's do something about it. This gray cord is actually plugged in. Can you check that, please? Thank you. Now we are fully loaded. Thank you very much. And we had our 10 seconds of surprise. Next question. Yeah.
Sometimes I think I'm getting confused with being in the moment and planning the future. Let's say that I go to work every morning, and I'm in the bus, and I try to be in the moment, this moment, and then I see people and I hear the sound of the engine going on, but I have things to do at work. So I start to think about it and let aside the worries or other things, but there are practical things I have to do, meetings and do some notes, and then sometimes I get confused then. Am I losing the moment by planning the future or planning the things that I have to do? Then I came back to the moment that, okay, I gotta do that later or sometime.
Usani, you are the boss in your work?
Not the boss. But there are things that my job, my work to do. Yeah.
So when you think about the future, when does that happen? It doesn't happen in the past. It doesn't happen in the future. It happens now. That's why we say that past, present, and future all come together in this moment. Because originally this moment has no past, no present, no future. From this moment, it's all born. So it's your choice what kind of future you are giving birth to. If you attain this moment, you have complete power over past, present, and future. So it's not only your responsibility to think about the future, to plan, but it's your job. Especially, you have a feasibility study, you have a business plan, you have human resources, etc. These concepts, they exist. You know, you have past year's result, quarterly revenues, it's all there. So use that, but you have to see that you are doing it in this moment. You are giving birth to the future in this moment. You are absolutely free to choose what kind of future you are giving birth to or creating. So when you see that freedom, then you attain your true responsibility. So past, present, and future is not your enemy. We just say that it doesn't exist by itself. We say it exists exactly from the mind which is in this moment. That's why when you attain this moment, then you attain complete power over past, present, and future. Sounds better, huh? Use that. And then don't be afraid of the future, because it never comes, but it's already here. Okay? More questions? Yeah.
I heard from you that don't be involved in other person's life. Or
You heard from me? When?
on TV. News. Oh,
Change the channel.
you say that to a mother worrying about her child, so don't try to be involved in other person and their
Osani,
choice.
you are using an answer which was given to somebody else's question. Do you think this is wise? Ask me your own question. Maybe you will see what kind of answer I give now.
So, someone try. Sometimes some other person try to want me to do something what they want, and
Now we are getting closer.
I don't need their help, but I know they care about me, so they try to do something for me, but I don't think to. I don't want
You
their
don't
help.
want them to
but
care for you so much,
so-
right? It happens. Then you say, no thank you.
Yes, but
That's all. It's really important. You thank them and you say no. Because they want to care for you, so you have to thank them. But since you don't want it, you have to say no. Now it may take years for them to realize what's going on, because they're so much used to getting into people's lives, including yours, with a wonderful intention. Or not so wonderful intention. So you just say, no thank you. But, no thank you. Can I call you later? So, it's fine. No one gets hurt. Yeah, maybe they're upset a little bit at first. But since you're very respectful and not derisive and you don't want to hit them, or, no negativity and no dualistic, they just, no. That's all you need to do. And if you repeat the message very clearly, unaltered, at some point they get it. Okay? Too simple, right? But there's nothing more that does the job. Anything more complex gives rise to thinking. You say, maybe today she said something else. Today her voice was different. Today, maybe the whole thing changes. But if you're really clear about that, but you don't want them in your life, you just say, no thank you. That's all. Okay. And you keep your center strong, because I tell you a story about that. You will love that. So, a long time ago in China, there were many hermits. And these hermits, when they practiced hard and correctly, they really attained something. So, there was a hermit who was kind of at the edge of the forest, far from the road, but he wanted really to let people know that somebody has done something. So he put a sign on the road, with an arrow, nature like ashes. I think it's clear what it's supposed to mean, that somebody's mind really attained extinction, and all the passion and all the dualities and attachment to life and death, it's all being extinguished. So, great and free person. So, an old woman sees that sign and says, nature like ashes. What does that supposed to mean? So then he walks, follows the sign, and he finds this monk. And this monk is really bright-eyed and nice presence and good reception. And this woman says, Sunim, you look really wonderful and your presence is great. I love to be here. But I saw this sign on the roadside, so could you please explain to me what is a nature like ashes? Then the monk's eyes become even brighter, and he opens his mouth and delivers this wonderful, eloquent speech for half an hour, using all the possible sutras and everything that he had ever learned and attained. And in half an hour, the old woman is just watching and hears what is enlightenment, what is nirvana, what is extinction. So the monk finished. And then the woman just bows and says, Sunim, it's been so wonderful to hear this. But you know, I am a little old. My mind cannot remember all this. So I want to tell this to my children. And can you make this a little shorter? So the monk makes it in 15 minutes. No problem. Even more concise, even brighter, even more kind of to the point. And the 15 minutes is over. The old woman bows again and profusely appreciates the monk's wonderful teaching and says, you know, I also have these very young grandchildren. And they are really, really young and they really want to hear this fresh teaching. Could you please make it even shorter so that I would remember that? The monk looks at it. Nobody ever asked that question 3 times. So basically 5 minutes. So the woman really says, Sunim, I feel truly and absolutely great by your empowering teaching to the nature of the universe and the way to extinction. But I'm afraid, since I'm so old and I have children and grandchildren and I have a very long way to go home, that by the time I get there I would forget even this. So if you could put it just into a few sentences, I would appreciate so much that I would come back with my entire family to listen to your teaching again. So the monk is getting a little bit edgy and says, So let's try that. And he puts it into 10-12 sentences. And it's like a profound, wonderful poem of the Dharma. It's artistic, it's astute, it's clear, it's absolutely hitting the marks of the most important points of the Buddha's teaching. And the woman said, Sunim, this is like a true pleasure to listen to you. And I'm sure that I'll carry this message for lifetimes. I just really would like to hear one sentence which carries everything. Just one word which would completely and so thoroughly convey this profound meaning. Then the monk blew up and says, I had enough of you. I had enough of these impertinent requests all the time. Get your memory refreshed or come back with somebody who can remember all this, and now I don't want to see you anymore. And this woman just put her hands in Hapchanga and said, Sunim, it seems now that there is still some fire under those ashes. And then, as legend had it, she just took the resplendent body of Kwanzaa Bosal, turned into pure white light, leapt up into the air, and just disappeared with the wind. Okay? That's why we don't interfere with other people's lives. Okay? More questions? Better say, that's why we say no thank you. Okay? That was the original point.
Can I add one more question?
Oh, of course, Vijayana. Unlimited.
In old Chinese Buddhist history, there are some anecdote about the Venerable Kumarajiva. He captured the enemy kingdom, and the king evaluated his excellency, and he's a very, very wise and a wonderful person, and he'd like to make him marry, because his offsprings may benefit, very big, wonderful benefit to their country. So I think Kumarajiva faced a very big dilemma. I think there are some cases like that. One more big in recent time in Korea. She got a very serious sick, and the doctor diagnosed that she has to have the meat and alcohol, but she rejected. But equally, I can't break my precept. And I think there are lots of dilemma in our daily lives. How can we decide the right decision?
First of all, you need to see what is your dilemma and what is not yours. So that means you should really see where you have to make a decision. Is this really your business, your dilemma, your question, or it's something that other people gave you? It's like a coat which they put on you and they set on fire. Not so good. If it's not your coat, don't put it on yourself. Now, that can result in the opposite extreme, that people just don't take responsibility. So do take responsibility for things that you are responsible for. Okay? This is very, very important. Now, if it's your dilemma, try to go beyond the dilemma. It's like this typical case, if you're a real Zen practitioner and you're in the forest and you see the rabbit going right, and the hunter comes and says, where did the rabbit go? Do you break your precepts? Do you care for the rabbit's life? Do you stay silent? What do you do? What do you say? Now, don't give me the answer, that's your homework. You know? So, how can you really ask the right question? How can you really identify what is your dilemma? And again, if you keep this moment very clear, then the world comes up to you with the question. And then you can truly connect to it, and you see that this question is yours. You go beyond the dilemma and attain the mind which is before thinking, before dualities, and therefore before dilemma. And then you can use that mind like a mirror to reflect. And then in that clear reflection, the solution appears. That's why we use combats. That's why we have Dharma combat or Samhita. Okay? So the original meaning of Dharma combat is attain the mind which is not divided, which is not dualistic, which doesn't have dilemmas. Because that solves everything. Otherwise, you will see left or right or silent, and you cannot decide. But if you're beyond all this, if you clearly reflect the whole situation, your thinking doesn't slice it up into small little details, then you see the whole picture. And originally, no dilemma. You attain that, you can solve all the dilemmas. Okay?
Very hard to understand.
You cannot. Did I say you can understand this? You cannot. But you can use it, you can practice it, you can attain it, you can experience it. I don't say things that are logical. Did you notice that? Because I don't want to entertain your logic. I want to give you some teaching. It's different. Okay. More questions?
나중에 후회하지 마시고 질문하십시오.
It will come. Everybody's breathing very deeply. That's right. And when you really breathe deeply and you focus inside, then your question appears. So, no questions, also no problem, but then we will be all like this very ancient turtle which is resting at the bottom of the sea, and every 600 years it comes up and does a little sunbathing.
Different kind of question. How do the Zen practice and Taoism, how they practice the difference? Taoism, how they practice?
So I never practiced Taoism, so
Yeah,
I
I know.
cannot tell you that.
Also,
I can tell
I'll tell
from my
you
limited
that.
experience as a Zen practitioner what we see as Taoist element in it. Okay, I can tell you that. First of all, the general environment of Taoist practitioners, it was always oriented towards hermit or solo practicing, and they didn't actively look for students. They were not teaching in the cities. But when they found the right disciple by some inyan, then it was lifetime. And then they became lineage holders. So that's what we call hermit style or meditation, or some people say esoteric Taoism. I don't like this word esoteric because you think there's something and there's nothing. So that's a word we don't use usually. But we say intensive mountain style Taoism. Many things happened there which we will never know, and only some results came off the mountain. Okay? The other version was really ritual Taoism, which is in towns to the present day, and they perform rituals, they have big temples, so they were serving the public with many, many things, including sutra teachings, other education classes, and also, like I said, ritual ceremonies. What I see as a very interesting Taoist element in our practice is simplicity. Originally, the Buddha's teaching during that 1,000 years after Shakyamuni until Bodhidharma or Dharmadesa became very systematic, very complex. Volumes like this appeared like mushrooms, and when Zen went to China, through Bodhidharma's experiences, it became clear that that direction cannot go on. It has kind of overlived or kind of over-ripened itself. It's not good. It's not good anymore. It doesn't serve the purpose. Too much thinking. Okay, that's why Zen masters in the Tang Dynasty were saying those horrible things, like Joju. Says, if I had met the Buddha when he was born, I would have killed him and fed his flesh to the hungry dogs. Then there would be peace. Now, that's going back to this thing that everybody was thinking about it, writing about it, talking about it, but who was really practicing? So Taoism, with its meditation orientedness and with its very strict practicing and very simple-minded practicing, that brought this right in. That's why Bodhidharma, he formulated the Zen Principles, of course, which existed before him, but he used it in such a way that we remember him as the primary teacher of not depending on the scriptures. Before that, everybody was dependent on the sutras. You remember the Doksan Sunim story. And then directly pointing to mind, that's also Taoist. It has a taste. Okay? Attain your true self, become Buddha. That's everywhere. That's in both traditions basically, but Taoism said become one with nature. So when we say true nature or original face, these are all Taoist concepts. So slowly these two traditions merged, and both of them are high class. So nobody was arguing who's right, who's wrong. That's why they could meet. That's why they could combine. That's why they could shake hands. It's very interesting that Zen Master Sung San also had a Taoist teacher. The son of that Taoist teacher is still an old monk at Vagyasa. You know that. Yeah. So Taoism and Buddhism, they are really high-class traditions. They are independently also functioning, but when historically they met in China, really the best of both worlds combined. We call that Chan or Son or Zen. Historically, that's the way. And you should also know that Chan comes from the original word of Channa, and that comes from dhyana, which means meditation or practice. So it's really important to see that we don't just cut off thinking for the sake of no thinking. It's really for the sake of awakening. So Taoism, like I said, brought very simple, very clear practice, but Buddhism brought the bodhisattva mind, the bodhisattva direction. These hermits, they really, when it was time for them to go, they went. And for your information, sometimes they went in such a way that nothing remained. Nothing, not even these little nails or hair, which remains after rainbow body, reportedly. Nothing, gone. The cave was empty. Don't try it. So the point is that the bodhisattva direction is really important. That's why if you look at the Shibudo, the 10 ox herding pictures, the basic 6 is Taoist. Additional 4 is Buddhist. There are researchers, scholars that say otherwise, but I don't go into that because I'm not a scholar. So the last one, when he reappears and he teaches as a master in the real world, or appears in other interpretations at the marketplace and sees the real world, that's the Buddhist direction. That you feed it back to the world. You're not waiting for the student to come up to your hermitage, but you actively teach. You don't convert because there's nothing to convert to, but you actively teach so that the student could appear naturally. And that is our bodhisattva way. Because when we say attain clarity and help all beings, this is actually what we are doing. Helping all beings really means that those who have ears, they can hear it. Those who have eyes, they can see it. And then they can also follow the path. This path exists both in Taoism and Buddhism, and the end point is really similar. When we say nirvana, or when we say original nature, it's pretty much the same point. But each tradition formulated it differently. Each tradition has different techniques. For instance, this Tanjon Ho, the Tantien breathing, that's Taoist technique. Open-eyed meditation, Taoist technique. You read this book, The Secret of the Golden Flower, it's a Taoist classic, it's all there. Okay? This Tanjon Ho didn't come from Buddhist tradition actually, or the yoga tradition. It came from Taoism. So many things which we are now considering as Zen Buddhist, or Chamson Bulgyo, they really came from both traditions. One from here and the other from there, they combined, and it's now indistinguishable almost. It was a very happy combination. It's dynamism, clarity, and intention to help all beings last to the present day. Very good. 2 more questions and we're done. If you have. Yes, Busanim. And then behind. Oh, already. So first please ask and then you come back.
About digesting karma.
About digesting karma.
I keep practicing, and I am about arrogant mind. Very big. I bring up these feelings, but very difficult. If that's it,
Too general, Bosanim. You have to ask something more specific. I don't need names, I don't need time and place, just please ask a real question. What's the problem with that arrogant mind? What's happening?
I'm a beginner, Buddhist beginner, like 100 bowing at first. It is very effective, but very work. And time passes. I am now 500 bowing every day. That doesn't work. The karma, about digesting karma. Yeah.
You have a kitchen, right? You have a kitchen. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Good. And you have a kitchen sink. In that sink, there is a hole for the water to flow down. Right? What happens when you pour just 1 liter of water into it? Flows down very quickly, right? You pour 5 liters of water into it. What happens? It takes time. Correct? It's not the problem of the water. It's not the problem of the sink. It's just the way it happens. When you do 500 bows a day, it brings up a lot of karma. So you have to digest it, and it takes more time.
Honestly, I don't want to practice, and I don't want to help somebody. I don't know why, but I have so many problems. I'm start practicing because of Sujanta Master or you. I'm very so touched in Buddha's thinking, but
Too hard. Too hard. If you just take it a little bit more easy and don't want to do it so much, then it will be more efficient. So in this case, less is more.
I'm okay. There is no problem at all. It's the process of the practicing.
So that's why I use this metaphor with your sink, because if you pour too much water into it and the sink can hold only 3 liters, then the other 2 spills on the floor. If your mind cannot process all that karma which comes up, then do not do it so hard. Go back to maybe just 100 per day. It will last longer, but it will be a little smoother, all right? And I think you would really have to do some chanting. Bowing alone is not enough, it's too rough. And if you do some Ensemble Aikido, and you also focus on your Tanjon, then your heart and your thinking will not give you such a hard time. At this point, your energy is all up here. And when you do bows, lots of energy appears, then it pulls up to your heart and your head again. And then you experience this. It's not the problem of practicing, but it's really not doing it the most appropriately. So your direction is clear, your karma appears. If you cannot process it right away, give yourself some time and just step back a little bit. You will have a very different practicing experience. You will not say, I don't want to practice anymore. Remember the kind of mind you had when you started? Remember that? Get back there. We call that beginner's mind. This beginner's mind helps you so much. The day when you first did your first set of 108 vows, just do that. Clear away everything. Clear away the expectation, the frustration, the emotion, all that thinking. Just try to take it away and do not blame yourself. I underline it 3 times. Do not blame yourself. There's nothing to blame yourself for. And then, only then, this beginner's mind will take effect and you can start from scratch. In Zen, we have the saying, 7 times fall down, 8 times get up. Again, this is not logical. But don't expect that. Just 8 times get up. Okay? So 8 times you get up, that means you get a stronger center. And for that, technically speaking, bowing alone is not enough. Do some chanting and do some Tanjon breathing and also relax enough. If your schedule is so tight during the day because of your work and family, etc., you create so much tension that formal practice can completely and absolutely fire back. Okay? So these things I would like you to digest and alter the way you practice. If you stop, it becomes worse. Next question. Here in the front we had some. Yes.
When we help others, is there any order the priority?
Always. Always, yeah.
Always, we help others. Usually, we help others in closer relation.
Absolutely, yeah.
But sometimes we feel it's not so good. It means I'd like to help others more in more productive way, more meaningful things like that. But because of a close relationship, there is something.
It's more difficult because of the closer karma also. When we say close to you, it doesn't mean that it has to start with your family. I mean, I could teach many people, but not my family. Either they got it or they didn't. And one part did, and one part didn't. It was natural. So the priority is close to you means right there. So you don't have to
Time
go,
and space.
exactly, you don't have to travel 6,000 kilometers or 7,000 kilometers to help people. If your karma naturally appears that you sit on an airplane and you land and you do your job like a doctor or Doctors Beyond Borders, they are doing amazing stuff. Or other, relief and aid organizations, too many to list, but really doing a fantastic job. And is that their karma? Is the workers' karma? They chose that, so they just went beyond borders. It's okay. But priorities are always there. Your capabilities, your location, the priority which you see as most important. Some people say, okay, first let's give food to the hungry ones. And they are right. How could you feed 1 billion people? Currently, that's the amount of people who are suffering from famine regularly on the face of this earth. So some people say, okay, let's change the social systems. That takes time. You cannot do it against people's will. Let's improve technology. That also takes time. I mean, development is so expensive. Monks and nuns, they say, let's change the mind. Now that takes the longest. But when that happens, then the change is so fundamental that everything else is affected by it. So the priority is really what is close. You have to see that. And your immediate family, even if you're a language teacher, you cannot teach language to your family members because they are too close. You remember that. When you wanted to study, you had to have a teacher outside the family, always. So that the emotions would not be a barrier. Remember that. So see your priorities very clearly. What is it best that you can do? Who is it that you really needs it? Okay? So find that, and then the priorities appear very naturally. You don't have to think. And usually when some kind of good quality appears in you, and you can do that, and you start acting like that, then the world brings you more and more and more and more. Because you are doing what you came here for. That's why we always say, find your way. You don't find your way, you are living somebody else's life. You are living the life of all those causes and conditions that were injected into you this lifetime through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And if you live that kind of conditioned life, which is not yours because you haven't found your way, then you really cannot help this world, then you need help. Okay? Because you really don't know. The first priority is truly find your way. And if you did that, then you have done the biggest favor for yourself and also for others. That's how priorities work. And then external priorities, they are very easy. And they appear all by themselves. Then follow that. Follow your true direction. Time and space, inside family, outside family, doesn't matter at this point. This was very quick. One more question, if any. Our cameraman is so dutiful. Let's the question. He brought the camera back, people. It's right before you. Yes. You are the lucky one. Wait for the mic, please, and you are on air now.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a short question. What do you think a meaning of your life? I mean, what is the purpose of your life?
You're asking me a question, and I'm answering you.
Yes.
Not enough?
Just that?
What's missing?
Just answering.
If you ask me a question, I answer you.
Is that your meaning of your life?
Of course. Not enough? So, keep it simple. If this moment brings you some challenge, respond to that challenge. We have that always and everywhere. Do not lose this moment, because if you lose the moment, you lose the challenge, you lose the question, then you cannot answer, cannot respond, cannot interact. Okay? This moment is the gateway to become one with the world. This moment is the only crossing in time and space where you can hear the question and you can also answer it. Where you can meet your challenge and respond to it. Where you can go beyond life and death. Where you can truly see human beings, us, as we are. That's why I keep it simple. That's why don't go anywhere. Don't make it big. Don't make it just so magnanimous and overblown that you will never be able to fulfill it. So if we keep it simple and keep it clear, then we find our way. Then we truly attain this moment and find our job, our function, in which we can help all beings. Thank you very much for your attention.